Okay. So, hey everybody, my name is Betsy Cates, and I am a junior cybersecurity analyst at a company called Juristep. It's a patent analytics company, and I have been coming to the Raleigh ISSA meetings for about a year now, and this has really helped me get a job in cybersecurity. I did the resume review here, the mock interviews, and I have networked with some incredibly smart and talented people. So if this is your first time here, please continue to come back because it is just awesome and everybody is very welcoming. So tonight's session is going to be on infrastructure as code. So I want to start off with a little story. So anybody in here use AWS or Microsoft Azure to build infrastructure on the console to test in? Yep. Okay, so some of us. So have you ever been like laying in bed one night and you're about to go to sleep and everything's really peaceful and you're like, I think I'll check my email one more time. You check your email and you've got an email from AWS and they're like, hey, your account's being charged $150. And you're like, wait, what? Who's on my account? That's not me. So you get on your computer and you're messaging AWS. You're like, hey, like you guys messed up. Like that wasn't me, y'all messed up. And then you realize you've got all this stuff that you forgot to tear down, right? And I know there's like AWS Nuke It and all that stuff, but like for me, it's kind of scary not knowing exactly what you have out there, right? Okay, so that is where infrastructure as code comes into play. It is super helpful with testing. It's super helpful with if you have a CI/CD pipeline where you work. It's awesome for that. So tonight, let me see if I can, yep, perfect, okay. So tonight we're going to talk about IAC, what are the benefits of it, what are the challenges that teams face, and what are some security best practices we can use while using IAC. Tonight we'll be using Pulumi, which is a tool that I've learned from my job, and we'll be using AWS. Okay, so whether you're new to the cloud or to coding, my goal tonight is to give you a practical introduction of how IAC can fit into your workflow. So during the presentation, please don't be shy, like raise your hand in the middle of it. Like you don't have to wait for me to stop talking, just raise your hand. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Okay, so what is IAC? Okay, so raise your hand if you use code in your job. Yeah, okay, awesome. What's your favorite coding language? Just shout it out. Python? Okay. Does anybody in here use GitHub or like a code repository? Okay, perfect. Are you, raise your hand if you're using a cloud environment in your work. Okay, a couple of people. Cool. What cloud environments are you using? AWS. Cool, because that's what we're going to be using tonight, so that's awesome. Okay, so infrastructure as code is a method of creating and maintaining your infrastructure using code instead of like going into the console to build out your infrastructure. So, for example, if you're configuring a brand new database manually, you'd have to log into your cloud provider's dashboard. You have to click through a lot of different screens, configure each setting, and you have to go through and double check you didn't make any mistakes. But if you do, you got to start the process all over again and try to remember what you did, right? Well, with IAC, that entire setup can be defined in a script. It can be versioned, reused, and it makes infrastructure a lot easier, faster, and more reliable.
So it's like using the CLI instead of that?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Okay, so what if one command could build your entire infrastructure for you? This could be like your application or your testing environment, and then another command could tear it down within seconds. IAC allows you to fully automate the creation and management of cloud resources, removing the need for time-consuming and error-prone manual configuration. With infrastructure defined in code, you can create consistent and secure environments that can integrate into your CI/CD pipelines. IAC is written just like application code. It can become a part of the same development workflow that you have, so you can test infrastructure and familiar IDEs like Visual Studio Code, which can also help you write your code and fix your errors before you deploy your code. Okay, so a little bit of a backstory on what IAC, just about IAC, is that it was introduced in 2009 by a company called Puppet. And now there's a few major players in the IAC game. You've got Terraform, you've got Pulumi, and then also cloud providers have their own IAC like AWS CloudFormation, Azure Resource Manager, and Google Deployment Manager. Each one has its own language and format, but they all help you do the exact same thing, and that is to automate your infrastructure. Okay, so with the IAC, you can spin up all sorts of your resources: storage, networks, databases, virtual machines, roles, policies, users. It's all defined in code and deployed with a command. Okay, so in short, code replaces clicking, and your infrastructure becomes smart, consistent, and way easier to manage. Okay, so here's an example. This is an example of using manual configuration in IAC. So let's say you want to create an S3 bucket. The manual way would be to log into AWS, click around, set up your permissions, and then with IAC, you just need some code. And it's super easy to repeat and to visualize. Okay, so now that we know what IAC is, let's set up our first project and see what the benefits are in action. Okay, so let me pull this over really quick. Hold on. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yeah, what you got?
Is this Pulumi open source?
Yes, Pulumi is open source. Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's what I'm about to show you. But that's also a good question. Okay, so if you're setting up a Pulumi project for the first time, also, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a QR code. It will take you to my presentation and all the code we're using tonight. So if you want to go play around with it on your own, you totally can. But this is what you need to start your Pulumi project. I've already done all this part, so I'm not going to do it tonight, but just so you know, that's what you would need to do. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over here. Let me open up my other window. Let's see. Okay. Let me open up the terminal. Cool. All right, let me open up my walkthrough so I can make sure I don't miss anything. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in Pulumi. Okay. New. Did I spell that right? Yeah. Okay, Pulumi new. And it's not going to work because this is a demo. Hold on. Oh, I got to delete this first. Hold on. Okay, Pulumi new. Okay, so we're going to create a template tonight. And I want to show you all of the different projects that you can create with Pulumi. So you can use any kind of language that you're comfortable with. I know everybody said Python, but at my job, we all use TypeScript, so we're going to use TypeScript tonight. Boo! Okay, so we're going to select AWS TypeScript. And this is our project name for tonight because I got the date wrong. Today's the 5th, right? Not the 6th? Yeah.
But at least you know that, though.
Yes, I did. Okay, and then we have a stack. And so in Pulumi, your stack is like your isolated instance of a program. So that's where all your configuration is going to be in the stack. So I'm going to call this my dev stack. And we're going to use NPM tonight as our package manager and US East 1. And now all of our project files are being put together, and you can see they're populating over here. Let me scroll down.
So Betsy Cates has a MacBook there?
Yes, she does. It's there. Okay, so you'll see that we've got all of these new files over here that Pulumi has made for us. We have our index file. That's going to be our entry point where all of our code's going to live. That's what's going to build out those AWS infrastructure that we want. And then we've got our normal stuff over here that you would come along with the node project. But if you come over here and click on our index file, you can see that they've already given us some code. This is a way to make a bucket. So let's test this out, okay? What do you guys want to name the bucket?
Bucket list.
Bucket list, okay. And I'm going to put today's date. All right. So once you have what you want to be built, we're going to do what's called a Pulumi. Oh, first, let me show you guys this. Okay, so raise your hand again if you're using GitHub. Okay, awesome. I want to show you guys how you can include this in your CI/CD pipeline, okay? So what I'm going to do first, oh wait, I'm already in here. I'm going to, stop it. We are going to do, let me pull up my notes so I don't miss anything. Okay. All right, so we're going to do git checkout. We're going to make a new branch. We're just going to call this new branch, if I can spell. Yep, great. All right, so we're on our new branch. We're going to do a pull request, okay? Gosh, now that I'm up here, I'm like totally blanking on how to do this. Hold on. Okay, yeah. Git add. We're going to do a commit. And our message is going to be bucket test. Okay, and then we're going to do, oh wait, let me pull this over so I get it right.
Isn't it just cool every time you see this happen? You just get from a command line or something and start typing and things start happening.
Right? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Only nerds will get that.
It's like magic.
Yeah, it is literally. If you can program, you are literally a wizard.
Let's see if that's going to do for me.
If you can think it, a programmer can create.
Okay. So now if we go look at, sorry guys, give me one moment. Okay, so now you can see in our GitHub, we've got our pull requests, okay? So let's pretend like we're on a team and we are all working in the same AWS infrastructure. So I have just made changes to our infrastructure, right? And I'm going to create a pull request. Well, now I can ask you guys for a review, and you can actually go in and see what I'm building in our AWS account without me doing it on the console. Pretty cool, right? So you can go in and review that and see, okay, Betsy's making a new bucket. Is she using the correct configurations that we want with our buckets? Is she making it secure? That sort of thing. This is why this is so cool with your infrastructure. So let's go ahead and just merge that. Sure. Okay, so after you've done this, now you can do the Pulumi up. So our repo code, our remote code is correct. So now we're going to make our infrastructure match that. So what you can do is it's called a Pulumi up. Can everybody see this okay? I know it's probably really small. Okay. So you'll see that it's creating the bucket. So we've got our bucket here. And Pulumi will add a suffix to the end of your bucket name because the names have to be global. So that's why you've got that ending number at the end. And this looks great to me. So I'm going to say, let's create this. Yes. All right. And just like that, we have a brand new bucket. You can see that the name is down here. So if we ever need to reference that later on, it's here. And let me go back here. I'm going to prove it. If we go over here, there's our new bucket. Woo! Yay! So exciting. All right, let's go back to, I'm going to put this away for a minute. Okay. Let me open up my notes. There it is. Okay. All right, so we have seen how to set up a project in Pulumi. So like we saw in the demo, it's really easy to collaborate with your teammates because your code is living in that shared repository. It's easier to understand. It's easier to visualize. It's built in a single place, and you can collaborate on changes, do reviews before you deploy, and you can run checks to make sure that everything is configured correctly. And with everything centralized, there's no need to like go dig around and try to figure out, okay, what's built where? What does our infrastructure look like? Because it's all there. You don't have to go searching for it. Also, it's versionable. You've got all of those commits in your repo. That means every change is tracked in your version control system. If a deployment causes an issue, you can easily pinpoint that exact commit that introduced the issue, and you can roll back to a known good state. All right, this is my favorite part about it, is testing. When you're creating a virtual environment and a test, it's so much easier with IAC. When you're done, you can easily just tear everything down, but you can also build everything back up quickly. So you could build your whole test environment, tear it down when you're done, and then the next day rebuild it really fast. So that way you're not having, it makes a really good use of an AWS free tier account. So here's an example of that. We've built our bucket, and then we can easily delete our bucket. It's gone. Okay, so IAC is repeatable. So if you build an environment, whether it's a failed experiment, a security incident, so if you have that happen, you can just re-execute your IAC. You don't have to remember which manual steps were taken for each change. And being able to repeat your code also ensures that your infrastructure always sticks with the same standards and policies. Okay, so for example, if you have a component that defines and creates a secure S3 bucket, every single S3 bucket you create from that component will automatically include the correct configurations exactly as defined in your code. The repeatability of infrastructure as code is a huge win for permissions and policies. So when you define your access controls in code, you can apply that same configuration across your entire environment with consistency. So say you need to onboard a new teammate or a new service, just reuse that same trusted code. And you don't have to start from scratch. And if a misconfiguration is discovered, you can fix it once you redeploy everywhere one time. Okay, so we're going to do a demo showing how you can utilize users, groups, and policies. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, what you got?
So it's kind of like power automation or something like that, similar. So because I'm thinking about the repeatability, because in these environments you have a lot of situations where you're just gonna happen at whatever time it is, but this is in the cloud though.
Mm-hmm.
What limitations does it have to connect to systems, or what are the limitations of this? Except,
Like, what are the challenges you would face from this?
sure.
We're going to cover that in just a minute. Wait just a minute, we'll cover that. But yeah, there are certain challenges that teams face, but I'm not sure exactly what you mean by, like, it would be like the same limitations that you would have with AWS, right? So, I mean, you're basically just doing API calls to AWS.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
But we're going to get to the challenges here in a minute. Don't worry. Okay, so we're going to do a demo. I'll show you guys how you can do users, groups, and policies. And let me go here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to go ahead and just remove our bucket for right now. So you'll notice that when we do that Pulumi up again, it will be gone. Okay, so I have some pre-made code that I'm just going to paste in here, so I'm not typing it all out again. Also, everything you see here is from the Pulumi docs website. So you can see how to build everything in AWS using their documentation. So that's super helpful. Oh, let me delete this. So this up here is just us importing the Pulumi, AWS, and the AWS Crosswalk libraries. That's what those imports are for. Okay, so we are creating 2 new users. We're creating Jane and Mary. We're creating a group and assigning a policy for that group. We're creating a policy that allows the developers to describe their EC2 instances. And then we're adding the users to that group. So these are the steps we're taking in our code for our new users. So we're going to do a Pulumi up. Okay, so you can see that our bucket's being deleted. And we have our new group, our devs group, our new users, Jane and Mary. We've got our team, our group membership, our group policy, and then here's where our bucket's being deleted. All right, everybody good with these changes? Cool. Do you have a question, or are you just saying good?
No, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Where are you specifying your AWS credentials?
That's a great question. So before I started this, here, let me go ahead and hit yes on, or I'll hit no, and we can just run this again. So when you do this, you would do AWS configure, and that's going to ask you for your access key and your access code, or your access secret. And you want to make sure that whatever one of those you're giving it, that user has the correct permissions for what you're wanting to do in Pulumi. But what I've noticed is whenever I try to build something that I don't have access to, it gives you a very specific error code saying this is what you need to add to your user or your role to be able to do this. So it really does help you do like fine grain controls there.
So is that stored in a file on your local machine?
Yes, it's stored in a Pulumi file on your local machine. It's also, I know it's on.
I don't want to push that to cloud.
Right, yeah, yes, yeah. But that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Yes?
Can't you just remove the bucket here from the CLI? If you do that generally from the GUI, it gives you a warning when you're removing, but I didn't see any here.
Oh, so this is the warning, right? Oh, okay, so this here is a warning. I haven't done it yet. Let me show it one more time. So this is basically the warning right here. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? It hasn't deleted it yet. Is that what you mean? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's not gone yet. This is where we say, yes, we want to get rid of it, and no, if we need to go back and make changes.
Pulumi expects you to kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, but I feel like it's very user-friendly. Like, I've picked up on it fairly quickly, and I would not say I'm a coder. So,
Definitely defaults to no.
yes, it does default to no, which is great, yeah. Yes, you do have to pay attention to that so you're not just clicking through. Okay, so we'll say yes here. And then you see where it's being created and where it's being deleted. So like if something were to fail, you would see it right there, and it would show you a really good detailed error message. Okay, so if we come back here, we've got our new users. We've got Jane and Mary. Okay, but what happens if Mary leaves? What do we do? Yeah, get her out of here. So, yeah, she's out of here. So we're going to get rid of Mary. Bye, Mary. Good luck. No, I'm just kidding. We like Mary. She's great. Okay, so we're going to do another Pulumi up. And we're going to say yes because we're seeing that Mary is being deleted.
I'm assuming that you can make her account inactive also.
Yes, yeah. And just like that, we have removed Mary for her access to our environment.
Have a good day, Mary.
Bye, Mary. She's doing well, you guys. She got a great job. She's doing great things. Okay. So now we've seen how you can create a new user. Let me go back to our slides. Okay, make this bigger. Great. All right, so let's talk about those challenges. Okay, so a major hurdle is the learning curve, okay? So if you have a team that's used to manual provisioning, you have to completely change their mindset. And you have to go all in with doing the infrastructure fully automated and codified. Without full buy-in, teams are going to end up with a hybrid workflow. So that means you're going to have some manual, some IAC, and this causes a lot of confusion about where your infrastructure is managed, which can also cause drift. Let me see if we can, there we go, drift. Okay, so this is when somebody changes your infrastructure manually outside of your IAC workflow. Okay, so like for example, say you have an engineer on your team and they're debugging a production issue and they've opened port 22 for SSH access manually, but they forget to close it and it's done manually. So that kind of change, that's going to introduce a security risk, and that's not going to sync up with our IAC. So a couple ways you can fix that. They do have tools you can use that will catch the drift, and you can go in and make those changes. You can also update the IAC code if that change is now considered acceptable going forward.
So you said it wouldn't sync up with the IAC. So
Correct.
they went in and manually changed it. The changes attempted to go into effect. When they tried to sync, IAC said no. And okay.
But it's also like when you go look at your infrastructure as code and the code, it's not going to match up with what you have in your console. So you're going to miss things. You know what I mean? So that's where the issue comes in as well, because you're like, okay, well, this is in my AWS console, but I don't see it in the code. Where is it? You know? So that does cause issues.
I absolutely can see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Does it scan to say, hey, something's changed, or is it just the next time you go to update it, it says, hey, 422 is now open here, do you want to delete it? Or?
From my understanding, if you don't have anything set up in your file, it's not going to catch it because it doesn't know to look for it. Do you know what I mean? So you would have to see it on the console to know. But if you were trying to configure something that's conflicting with something that was manually done on there, then it will give you an error message. And it's like, hey, you can't do this. This is already here. Or it will give you an error message.
So like when Mary was created, and then if you manually deleted her, then it would say, hey, she's supposed to be.
Yes, you would get an error message. Yeah, exactly.
So let me
Is there any precedence, sorry,
you go ahead. No, go ahead.
is there any precedence like the manual one is considered more important and this one is not? Is there anything like that?
That's a great
We're
question.
gonna go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just causes confusion on the team, you know, because you don't know like what is considered to go in the console and what's considered to go in the repo, you know? I think it would just depend on your team, honestly. Like maybe you're trying to get into IAC and you're slowly going in, so maybe that's where it would work, but maybe, yeah.
Are there explicit permissions that you can set? Meaning, so if you have a console you have a console and essentially the CLI that you can operate simultaneously. Like back to your question, like something has to take precedent in some final way, so we won't go there. But given the case, given that instance, if like you are in the console, like is there a way you set up some type of permission or explicit commands to where it starts or stops or someone takes control if those changes are enacted instead of in the CLI or in the command line, it goes on the dashboard or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that, but I feel like there's probably some way you can set it up to say this is strictly in here, and if somebody tries to do something outside of this, it will not work. But from my understanding, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it does sound like it's a possibility.
That's a great answer too.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. All right, so we've talked about the challenges. Let's also talk about security best practices when you're using IAC. You have a state file when you use IAC. That's going to be a record of what infrastructure your code has created. This is going to be very critical for tracking and reconciling the real environment with your code, and it can often contain sensitive details. So you want to treat that state file like a secret. You want to store it securely on a remote backend and make it restricted to who can see it and use it. You want to use encryption at rest and in transit for that state file, and you want to back up old versions of it. So you can set up your state file a couple of different ways. You can use AWS S3. You can use Microsoft Azure Blob Storage or Google Cloud Storage, but Pulumi has cloud storage that you can use to store your state file in. So like that's where mine is. If you're using a Pulumi project, that's what it's automatically going to go to, but you can move it where you want it to go. So that state file is really important because that's like this is what our infrastructure is. Like that's the last source. Does that make sense? Okay. You want to use peer code reviews like we saw with GitHub earlier. A fresh pair of eyes can spot mistakes that automated tools can miss, such as like a role having excessive permissions or a misconfiguration. Code reviews encourage discussion of best practices and reinforce security awareness. This can also help ensure that changes follow your organization's standards like naming conventions, tagging, compliance rules. Because if you've got somebody brand new working on this and they don't know what your tagging system is or how to like name their S3 buckets, when they do that code review, you can say, hey, let's go fix that really quick. One of the biggest risks that we can address with IAC is handling sensitive data like passwords, API keys, access tokens. You never want to store a secret in plain text in your code. So you don't want to hard code a password, an API key directly into those IAC files. It might seem convenient, but it is incredibly risky. And why is it risky? Because your code could end up in a shared repo. All of your commit history has those hard-coded passwords in it, and your secrets are exposed. And often those exposures go unnoticed until it's too late. So instead of that, if you're using Pulumi, you can use Pulumi secrets, and this lets you mark values as encrypted. And this means that even if someone gets access to your code base or your deployment logs, they won't be able to read those values. Okay, so we're going to do another demo. So in this demo, what we're going to build is we're going to build an RDS, it's a relational database service, and we're going to build a security group for that database. And we're going to do something kind of different with this one, okay? So this is a little bit more complex, but you guys are super smart, so I know you can handle it, okay? So this time, instead of going straight to our index file, we're going to make a module. So what's cool about a module is you can set up all of the different preferences you want with a piece of infrastructure and then just pull in an interface into that index file. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to do this. If you don't understand it right away, don't forget at the end of this, I will share my repo with you and you can check it out later, okay? Cool. Okay, so let me pull this over. Anybody have any questions? Everybody good? Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me pull up the walkthrough. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this modules. And then I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to call this RDS. Okay, so I'm going to paste a lot of code in here, but we'll go through it, okay? Actually, it's not that much. Okay, so what we're going to start out with, and you can find all of this on Pulumi's website, okay? So they'll show you exactly how to set this up. We're going to create our interface, and those are going to be all the settings that we're going to configure on our index file, okay? We're going to export our class, and this is also what we're going to bring into our index file. So you can see we're creating a new RDS subnet group, a new RDS instance. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the code that's going to go in the index file. This is also going to include the security group information. And I think I grabbed too much. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pull this. And I think I'm missing one. Yeah, hold on. Oh, okay, that's all right. Hold on. Oh, I forgot to pull in the security group module. That's what I was doing. Sorry about that. We also need our security group module. So I'm going to come back over to my modules, and I'm going to add security group. Okay, perfect. And then this is our component, our module, excuse me, for our security group. So again, we have our interface and we have our class defining what we want our security group to look like. Now, if we come back over to our index file, you'll see where we're importing those classes. And I'm going to redo this one because I think it's confused because I brought it in. Hold on. Go back. Modules / security group. Oh. Perfect. Oh, thank you. That's why it doesn't like that. There we go. And then I'll do the same for this one. Let's see. Modules. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. All right, so we're importing those classes. And then we're using that interface to define what we want this to look like. Okay, so you'll notice I have these configs, right? They look kind of confusing. They've got this red line. All right, so we've learned about modules. We've learned about how to bring them into our index file. Now let's learn about how we can use Pulumi secrets to encrypt these secrets in our code. Okay, so let me pull this up. Okay, I'm gonna do. All right, so the first secret we have is our VPC ID. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that. I'm going to do AWS EC2 describe, oops, not ECR, EC2. And I'm going to get my VPC ID number. Okay, I'm going to come back over here. All right, let's add in a secret. So we're going to do Pulumi configure or config set secret. And let's see, let me make sure I got that right before. Oh yeah, set, we need to put the VPC. We're going to set the VPC ID and then the secret. I'm going to say yes. And now I'm going to paste the value that I just pulled.
Two questions.
Yes.
Is it case sensitive and are the values that you remember the values in the past?
Okay, first, what was the first question? Is it case sensitive?
So you have lowercase BBC capital I.
We're just setting up a variable. I'll show you in a minute what it means. Sorry, I know that's confusing. What was your second question? Yes.
So if you have 8 characters of the XR.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we come over here to our pulumi.dev.yaml file, you'll see that we have our secret that's now encrypted, and we have a new variable. It's that VPC ID. So I'm going to show you how to pull that variable into your code without having a hard-coded secret. We're going to do a new file, call it config. And let me pull that over so I don't type all of it out. And okay. So we're going to do, I'll just type it, import as Pulumi from, there we go. And then we're going to set up our config file equals new. Yep. Great. Okay, so here's where we put in our secret. We're going to export it. And you do require secret. There we go. Okay, so now we have it set up in our config file. We're going to come back over to our index file, and we've got to import the configuration. So we're going to do import as config. Okay, so now when we come down here, we can do config.vpcid. Maybe? Oh, I did something weird. Hold on. Thank you. There we go. Okay, so what we did was we used Pulumi secrets to encrypt that secret. It puts it in our YAML file, and we create a variable from it. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Cool. Oh, yeah.
Is there like an option for changing the encryption method?
Yes. He asked if there was an option to change the encryption method, so maybe you want something that's more. You can definitely put that in there to tell it what kind of encryption you want. That was just a standard one. I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head, though.
And that would probably have to be kept consistent across.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Config is a repo kind of secret, and
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
the Pulumi config set VPCID secret.
Yes.
So can it contain multiple variables, or is this config can store multiple variables?
Yes. So you can continue, and we'll do that one more time. So I'll show you one more. Okay, so for this one, it's asking for a password. Obviously, we don't want to hard code our password in there, right? So let's add another secret. And this time, we'll just call this one RDS. Did I do this? Yeah, password. And then I'm going to type in my password. And then if I come back over here, you can see that it's added in the new one. But you still have to come over to your config file and add it in. Great. There we go. And then we come back over to the index file and type in password. Not like that. Great. So yes, you can add multiples in there. Yeah.
And that RDS password is pretty much calling what you put in there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
So the config file that stored that hash version of the password, what's the functional difference between having the hash version in there and the original, if you can still use the hash version to do all the different activities?
So you're saying, what's the point of having the config file?
What's the point of having the hash version of the password in the config file as opposed to the plain text version of the password in the config file?
That's a great question. So you don't want to hard code that password in there, because if you put it in your GitHub repo, it's out there for the world to see, especially if it's in your commit history. Like say you caught it, you deleted it, but you've already committed it to your repo, it's still in there.
No, I get that.
Okay.
The hash version is in there anyway. What's the difference between that tokenized version, that hash version, versus the original?
Could we copy this, make our own IAC to do something malicious? Does the hash version still get you credential, or is there something in the background that?
That's a great question. I see what you're asking now, and I'm not sure, but now I want to know. I have not thought about that. Thank you.
I think it takes the hash version. I think because when you're logging into something, it will ask you for the main address, and there is no way to go back to the main password from the hash. So
Yeah.
I think that's how it works.
I can't see this being set up to where you can do that, to where you can just take the hash and then use the hash as a password. I would assume.
Some kind of salting or something with each
Yeah.
I agree with you.
instance.
It would be, yeah, I don't think it would be possible to just copy the hash and let me use just as a password.
Correct.
It's gonna
No,
revert
not-
back to one hash.
Not using it as a password, but this is obviously using that hash to do the.
Yeah.
To do that activity, so if you created another thing that was using the same pathway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're saying, so,
It's creating a mask.
yeah, if we were to copy this, create another instance of this, and use the same hash information to try to gain access the same way that this one is doing, I can only assume that there's something blocking. Now, I don't know anything.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I tell you, Todd, I would assume you really want to hope so.
What is it, the saying, trust but verify?
Absolutely. Trust
Yeah.
me.
That's why I come to these meetings, because there are so many smart people and I'm learning from you guys. So that's definitely something I want to look into more. So thank you for asking that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
What's the code on line 56?
Line 56. Oh, that was just a username. It's my sister's name. Yeah. What does that mean? Is that something in AWS? Okay, so at this point, if we did our Plumie up, we would get our new security group, our new RDS. This one does take a while to process. Let me go back to... that's actually it for tonight. Does anybody have any questions?
I think that was great. Good job. So,
Thanks. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.